Welcome to the Your Company Health Podcast. I'm your host, Andre Wright, founder and CEO of the Wright Consult Digital Marketing Agency, and also the creator of the Patient Buzz program. The goal of this podcast is to highlight healthcare professionals, their journey, and how they're making the world a better place. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Your Company Health Podcast. I'm Andre Wright. I'm really excited today because I have a fellow Islander on, Dr. Zynul Dion Khan, a sports medicine doctor over in Trinidad and Tobago. Doctor, welcome, and I'm excited for you to join me today.
It's nice to be here, Andre, and thank you for having me on your show.
Awesome. I can't wait to get into what you do and who you serve. So yeah, we could start there. So tell us about your background and your journey in healthcare.
Well, I started off as an emergency physician. I worked in emergency medicine for 10 plus years. And at the same time, I was working with sports teams, volunteering with them in Trinidad and Tobago. So I've got a lot of experience dealing with emergency services and working with athletes. And that led me down my career of becoming a sports medicine doctor and eventually going into public health. But what I really learned while being in the emergency department is that, we need to change our narrative of how we treat health and be more proactive instead of reactive. So constantly we're waiting until disease is started and then we're doing something to change it. And at some points it's too far gone, it's too late to do much on reversal. Now we're just trying to catch up. What if we can start from before the disease starts, before any non-communicable problems start, and start preventing those diseases? So I've gone down that road. And a part of that is because when I was working one night in the emergency department, I saw a 25-year-old young man get a heart attack. And his only risk factor was he was morbidly obese. And that was a turning point in my life where I went, what am I doing here? Am I making a difference? Am I really making a change in people's lives? And that led me into first starting to work with diabetics. And then later on, with the nurse I've started working with, we've gone into now helping women navigate menopause. And it's an interesting field because our women usually start menopause as early as their 40s, some even younger than that. And it can go well past 50. And usually women go into menopause, at least in the Caribbean, about 51. And it can go longer than that, and into their 60s, they could still be having menopausal symptoms. But in addition to that, with those hormonal changes, there's a risk of non-communicable diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, weight gain. So they're now at risk of developing non-communicable disease and put themselves at risk of heart attacks, strokes, and all these things. So my expertise joining my nurse has been that we are creating a community that really help women navigate menopause, avoid non-communicable diseases, learn what supplements they can take to replace those hormones with natural supplements before going into hormone replacement therapy, and what else they can do to really thrive through this period. What we discovered is this is a hugely taboo topic. Women are not talking about it. People are not talking about it. And women are feeling quite lonely and isolated in their journeys. They even talk to their own daughters about what they're going through. So we want to change that narrative and really get the awareness out there, in addition to providing as much help as we can to help them thrive through this beautiful transition of womanhood. Mm-hmm. So that's me in a nutshell.
and you're right. That's a taboo topic, and I kudos to you for getting that discussion going. But I want to go back to something you said initially, and I've spoken with different healthcare practitioners, and they're saying the same thing. It's so important in this day and age to be proactive with your health journey.
You see, it comes down to this. Nobody really pays attention to their health, and I say nobody. I'm saying most times you don't. Reason being, it's happening on the inside. You're not seeing the changes. It's not obvious. Not until you lose a finger or you suffer a heart attack, or you go to your doctor and they tell you, or you, like one patient I had, he lost his eyesight for 2 days. And that's when you realize that, he was diabetic. Not until those overwhelming changes come along do you recognize that something might be going wrong. So it's very hidden. And for that reason, we don't tend to pay attention to it. But whereas you look at somebody who's building a business or starting a new job or starting a new degree, or a new profession, it's right in your face. You have to learn. You have to do this to pick up on it. You have to move forward. If you're not doing this, you're not going to get here. And there's all of this talk out there about these things, but we're not paying attention to the inner workings of ourselves. And really, health is really about consistency. It's about doing the same things every day. And you don't have to do it 100% a year. You're doing 80%, you're doing great. You're allowed to take a break. In fact, I recommend taking breaks, much like we tell people in business, if you're not taking breaks, you're overworking, you're going to burn out, right? Same thing with health. You can burn out. And then the amount of information out there that's confusing, like many of my clients come in and they start describing, oh, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this and I've gotten the results here, but then it has stopped. You see, all of that creates an overwhelm. So people tend to back away from it. It's internal, so you're not seeing it. And then additionally, you go to your doctor and we're so busy, we're so overwhelmed that we don't take the time to sit and just chat with you about what you can do to move forward.
Mm-hmm. What about the pride aspect of it? Because I know sometimes, from a man's perspective, most times you like shrug off things and you wouldn't want to go there versus a female, they will be more frequent at the doctor. Is that something that you're seeing, or is that a specific pattern, or what's the reason behind that?
That's an interesting thing, because I help the staff at the hospital I work with to help to achieve their healthiest weight. And for everybody, I always tell them your healthiest weight is not based on your BMI, which I wouldn't use, but really how old you are, where you are in life, what you're doing at this time. So, the rule is you can actually be overweight and be healthy, or slightly overweight and be healthy, but being underweight, you're putting yourself more at risk, right? But yes, and in my clinic, I see majority female patients. They're the ones who are showing up. They're the ones who are saying, I want to do this, I want to change. But I think that comes from our upbringing. From a very young age, women are made aware of their bodies more than men are, right? And in a lot of statistics, they show young girls from the age of 6, as young as 6, are worried about how they look, because people are talking to them about it. By the time they hit 9, 10, 11, they're going into things like bulimia and anorexia and restricting food. And there's lots of statistics on this. And it starts from that very young age of that body typing, that body shaming that's leading. And that's why women at a later stage, they tend to be more active and proactive about themselves, and making that change. But in addition to that, motherhood in itself, when you think of women, they are constantly, they regularly think, oh, how can I help? How can I be a mom? Right? How can I be a better mom? I want to be there for my children. And they put more effort into that than they do, most men do, right? But men, we're been bred to be tough, to be, oh, we don't need help.
Not sure, yes.
Especially from the Caribbean, this is a common narrative.
Right.
Hopefully that changes over the next few years, and men will be more open to coming in and saying, hey, I do need help.
Yes.
How can I get healthier? Coming out to the Caribbean, most of our medical care is free, right? And easily accessible. So you can go get just about anything done for zero of your cost.
Right.
Most it costs you mostly is in time. So in comparison to the US, that freedom of healthcare that we have in the Caribbean should help us to be a healthier nation. But I think what's contributing mostly to the increases in obesity and diabetes and hypertension, in heart disease, is not the healthcare systems. The healthcare systems have improved tremendously.
The way we eat.
It's actually what we eat, but it's also the highly processed foods we're putting into our systems.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the US is one of the nations in the world that has one of the highest levels of highly processed foods, right? When you look at similar places like Europe, they don't eat as many highly processed foods. And there's lots and lots of videos online where people say, I have left the US and I went to live in Italy, I went to live in France, and I lost 20 pounds and I lost 30 pounds in 6 months. Why? Because their food is shifted, right? So I've seen lots of overweight people who are morbidly obese doing lots of work, like construction sites and having these big bellies in front of them. They're working all day, they're sweating, but yet they're not losing weight. So I always go back to what makes the difference is what's in your plate, what's in your fork, right? So if you're not paying attention to what you're eating and you're putting in these highly processed foods, it's so funny, there's so much of it that a lot of us don't realize it's right there in our fruits, vegetables, oils, flour. They're all highly processed nowadays. So how do we shift that, right? And we're seeing a change where even the more was recommended healthy meals, right, are not so healthy anymore because those have a lot of chemicals in it. So we're disrupting our systems regularly. Going to whole healthy foods is, I mean, like I have a friend who lives in New York. He can get whole healthy foods all the time, but it's easier to grab a highly processed meal or fast food meal, right? So it's really shifting your health and being more aware of what you're putting into your body and moving away from the highly processed and start making foods for yourself. You know, all those things makes a difference. So in terms of comparisons of cultures, I think modernization as a whole has had both its good and bad impacts, right? And bad impact is there's food is readily available and we're ready to eat it all the time. And that's another problem.
Yeah.
Food is readily available.
This episode is brought to you by the new book, Visibility, Digital Marketing Secrets. You can get it on Amazon or AndreEWright.com.
It's all about efficiency, you know, all about accessibility, right? Over here in the US, I mean, it's all about making that food fast. It's all about, oh, we're always on the go. You know, there's a fast food here, fast food there. We're gonna get things quickly. So it's challenging living in a nation like the US or where things are so accessible. And the world is getting like that too. That's the thing. You mentioned modernization. So where are we gonna live? You know, because it's I'm almost sure I know I went to Jamaica, you know, 2 weeks ago, and everywhere just you know, all these fast food restaurants all over the place. I imagine the same thing in Trinidad and Tobago. So modernization is here to stay. And so what should we do about all this?
Well, I mean, one of the things we have today that's really a big plus is that food is readily available. When you go back to the 1940s and 1920s, food wasn't readily available. And that's why the growing of wheat and potatoes and all those things became so important. But now we can walk out and find a meal within 5 minutes.
Yep.
So the rule of thumb is really to back off of finding that meal every 5 minutes and start being more aware of what you're eating. Like the Japanese have a principle where they say eat until you're 80% full and stop, right? But there's a counter to that where there's recent studies have showed that people who are obese, right, are unlikely to be able to stop eating because they don't know when they're full. And they're suspicious that that might be a lifelong problem even after they lose the weight, right? So that means that if you're obese, there's a likelihood that you don't know when to stop eating, right? Because you've suppressed that response in your brain so long that it no longer exists anymore, right? So it's really being conscious of what we're eating. Get rid of the snacking. You know, no more snacking between meals. Eat your 3 meals a day. And I always recommend 3 meals a day unless you're fasting, and then use the intermittent fasting too. But, you know, and remove snacking. And if you're gonna snack, hit a vegetable, hit a fruit, you know, do something that's more slow carb based, right? With more natural sugars instead of going after, you know, that bun or that ice cream or, you know, that Pop-Tart, you know, because yes, they're easily available. You can stick them in the microwave, right? But do it with something else. So one of the things I try to teach my clients is just shift. You want to snack, and initially we get rid of snacking. But when we implement snacking back into it, like if you want to snack between meals, I tell them, eat a healthy snack. But I also say, after a few weeks of working with my clients and reducing their carbohydrate intake, and all I do is reduce carbohydrate intake. That's it. We don't talk about fats. We don't talk about vegetables. We don't talk about proteins. We just talk about carbohydrates for the first 7 to 8 weeks. So we reduce that intake, and I tell them they have a choice. They can go back to eating more carbohydrates, right, for 3 days, but they have to recognize how their body feels, or they can just not do it. And many of them, after they do like 1 day of going, okay, I'm gonna go for a roti instead. I'm gonna go for something that's high. I'm going for a KFC. They realize that they feel so upset and they feel so terrible next day that they never go back to it. And that freedom to do that shows them how much these things are damaging their body and how much their body is screaming against it. And they actually stop and they never go back.
And I want to say, I love me some roti. I heard you mention it. We'll eat some roti now, right?
Yeah, I'm not against roti. I love roti. I can eat it every day. But the point is, I mean, that is not a processed food, a highly processed food.
Right.
Most rotis are, you make it at home, or the person who makes it's not highly processed. Right? So there's a certain health value to roti. But if you're going to eat it 3 times a day, obviously you're going to have a problem. But if you're eating once, twice a week.
And the thing is, and it sounds like, Doctor, what it comes down to, it's just being disciplined. Be disciplined and intentional. You raised a good point about and how you dealt with your patients in terms of the carb intake. That's why the keto diet is so popular now. That's why that diet is so popular. The intermittent fasting is so popular because, from what I've read and I've seen, they're seeing so many great benefits in intermittent fasting, and
there is. But I always tell people also, I was like, why go for these overwhelming goals? Change one thing every day. If you want to exercise, start with doing 1 hour or doing half an hour, right? And break it up. Do it 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes throughout the day. If you do 3 10-minute exercises to increase your heart rate, it can be anything from lying on your bed and just contracting all the muscles in your body to just going for a brisk walk. Any exercise will do once it increases your heart rate. And let's repeat that 3 times a day. And don't start with, I'm going to do 5 days this week. Start with, I'll do 1 day this week. I'll do 2 days this week. And then next week, I'll do 3. And the same thing with nutrition. You say, okay, for 1 meal, I'm going to remove half the carbohydrates and replace it with fruits and vegetables. Yeah. Just 1 meal.
And that's good.
Do it in small increments, yeah. Right. And I can guarantee you in a year's time, I always tell my clients, if you improve by 1% every day, in 100 days, what do you have? 100% improvement. So but it's a total opposite. If you get 100%, you skip a day, you actually lose more than if you just go out and do it. Even when you're tired, just go out and do it. Yeah. So start small, start simple, just move slow, and just keep moving forward. It doesn't have to be overwhelming goals.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. It's just like, even trying to, run a race, be good in athletics. You just gotta start slow, you run a small pace at time to time, and then you gradually increase that pace. So baby steps always it's
a great example is from your nation, Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt never ran 100 and 200 meters until he hit the Olympics.
There you go.
That was the first time. He ran 4 and 800 and all the longer
long distance races. Yep.
Why? Because they didn't want to burn out. He didn't want it to burn out too early. So they kept him away from it. And what did he do? He dominated the world.
Definitely. And what those, and by, what he have said over the interviews and what I've heard, what those longer distance runs did for him was that it helped him to build stamina. He was stronger, was able to dominate when he, because if you notice some of these races that he's running, at the end he could have ran like 200 more meters fast. So he was like looking around. So he had that stamina.
Yeah, he always pulls up and he looks around. I'm sure he's gonna beat that record even more.
Right. So
but that's how it is. I mean, using that example, go slowly, go for the longer distances, take your time. It's not a 100-meter sprint, it's a marathon. Right? Take your time, pace yourself, go slowly, do single steps. Right. And I can guarantee you every day a single step leads to another step, and a year later, 3 years later. Like most of the people I know who've lost a lot of weight, they said the first 40 to 50 pounds was the hardest, and it took them a year and a half.
Yep.
And then they said the next 50 to 100 pounds fell away. They didn't even notice it happen. They jumped in a scale and they went, oh, I just lost 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And they were like, I didn't even notice it. Right? Because your body's now in that mood of getting better, getting healthier.
And the
and
thing
you're
is,
transitioning.
And the thing is, what these baby steps do, it helps you to create a habit. So you can actually, you can incorporate these steps in for a longer run, for the long term. It's not like a crash diet or a crash thing that you don't ever want to do again. So going slow is always good. But doctor, I mean, I can't believe that the time is just flying, but I need to get into your passion project and what you're doing now. But tell us, I know you mentioned how you got into healthcare and all that, but what are you really passionate about?
So I'm about getting people to a healthier state of mind. And right now what we're doing, and the community we've created is called the White Rose Community. It can be found at the whiterose.site is the website. So we only started last year and we're now getting developed. We actually have a webinar tomorrow that which is going to be, we're going to talk about intimacy during menopause. And then next week, we're starting our first course, which is the menopause intimacy formula, where we go through 6 weeks of showing you how to improve intimacy while going through the stages of menopause. So that's my passion these days. Joining this with my nurse Maria, in doing this, it has been absolutely amazing what we've learned about women. And as I said, most of my clients have been women, so this fell right into my lap. And now I get the awesome job of not just helping them go through menopause, but helping them to stay healthier, avoid non-communicable diseases like diabetes and heart disease, and really live until they're 80, 90, 100 years old while living in what would they call it, the blue zone of the world, where women live long lives.
Right. I mean, and that's we all want to live as long as possible, but if you could say, like, someone is listening and they're hearing the good points that you're making, but if you could give us like three like immediate actionable things that someone can do to boost their improve their lifestyle or move towards a healthier lifestyle, what would those be?
Okay, so three things are. First thing, exercise. The recommendation is 30 minutes at least 3 to 5 times a week. Here's a little secret. You don't have to do 30 minutes at once. You can break it up. It's 30 minutes a day. It's a total of 30 minutes a day. So if you want to do 10 minutes 3 times a day, 1 minute 30 times a day, that's fine. And you can do any exercise. If you like to dance, dance. If you like to skip, skip. Just increase your heart rate. And an easy way to do that, and this goes into the second tip, get a fitness tracker. Any wearable device like a Fitbit or Apple Watch. It doesn't have to be the expensive ones. It doesn't have to be particularly accurate, because what you're looking at is just trends. Later on, you can get a more accurate one when you want to know what your heart rate really is at. Make sure it counts your heart rate, because heart rate variability is a great way to monitor stress and how you're doing with your exercise. Get a fitness tracker. That way you get your steps, you get your heart rate, and having one motivates you to want to do more. So if you see you do 3,000 steps a day, guess what? Tomorrow, you want to do 4,000. The next day, and suddenly you're doing 10,000 steps with ease. And the last thing is your nutrition. Nutrition is a huge part of how you're going to lose weight. Start easy, right? Start, as I mentioned earlier, 1 meal every day, right? Remove half the carbohydrates. If you don't know what a carbohydrate is, go on your phone, go on your computer. We have so much information available to us today. We're overwhelmed. So why not use it for our own purposes? Go check out what is carbohydrates and remove half of the simple carbohydrates in that meal and replace it with fruits and vegetables. Any fruits and vegetables, anything you like. If you like cabbage, eat cabbage. If you like lettuce, eat lettuce. If you like apples, eat apples. It doesn't have to be something you don't like, because then you won't want it. You want to do things you like. And then every day do that. But one of the tips are, once you remove that carbohydrates for that day, don't put it back for the rest of the day. That gets moved to the next day, right? So that carbohydrate is gone for the day. And then start with 1 meal, and then move to 2, and then move to 3, and then remove snacking. Simple steps. So those 3 tips: get a fitness tracker, exercise 30 minutes and break it up. right? Start with 2 days in a week and then work your way up to 3 and then 4 and then 5. And lastly, for the meals, remove half your carbohydrates, replace with fruits and vegetables. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about the fats. Don't worry about the proteins. You'll get to that later. As you start to feel the change, you start reading. You start looking for more information. You start implementing. And suddenly, a year later, you're running a marathon and everybody's wondering, where did this person come from? I know this because one of the surprising things that happened to me, and you see me wearing my reading glasses right now. I used to wear glasses that got really bad. It went to a point, negative 0.5, and my eyes were getting worse. I went to my optometrist this year, and she says my eyes have actually gone back to where they were when I was in my 20s. Positive 0.25, completely surprising. She said she's never seen a change like that. I actually don't need glasses anymore. Right? And the prescription I need, they don't have it because it's too light. Right? So she said to me, you don't even need your glasses. They're actually hurting your eyes. So all I need to do is wear reading glasses now. That is a change that happened in 3 years from going worse to suddenly reversing. Unbelievable change. So changes will occur and they will surprise you.
Yes.
So look forward to it.
No, definitely, and doctor, and you're a testimony of that. And I'm glad you mentioned that doing those small actionable things that you can, baby steps, just pulling away this carb or just take away the snack can definitely move you to to optimal health. So those are some great points that you mentioned there, and we all can learn from that and learn from your experience and improve our health. But doctor, we're at the end, right at the end of our. But I want to touch on something real quick. I know you have these new initiatives. What do you do for digital marketing?
Well, we're now launching into trying to get our marketing program going. So what we're doing, we're going on social media. We'll hopefully be launched by next week. By next week, Friday, we'll have everything up on social media. Digital marketing, we're going to do a podcast, and we're going to start our own video blog. Where we're going to make short videos and post them on any of the social media campaigns to really share information. Really, these videos are not about trying to sell a community, but we want people to come and join it and gain from it. So we're going to share as much as we can of what you can do to help, especially ladies, to help manage your menopause, right? So in terms of digital marketing, that's where we're going. We're gonna stick to that for now and see how things go. Really do the split testing and everything and see how that goes. Really paying attention to our analytics. That's gonna be a huge thing for us.
Definitely. And I'm so glad that you understand that from the onset, because as we discuss, I do digital marketing for doctors, but that is so important. Analytics, look at the numbers and what's happening, and some of the things that you're saying that you're doing. It's gonna bear some good fruits in terms of being that thought leader out there, whether on any platform, talking about women health and the importance of doing certain things. You're gonna realize that you're gonna get a big audience from that. Doctor, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Always a good chat with you, and let's keep the conversation going. And until next time, we'll talk soon.
And thanks for having me, Andre. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found this information useful. Please share this episode on social media and also visit our website at andreewright.com/podcast for more. And also leave us a review on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, see you then.